Patch 4.11 is coming. This patch will not only include standard changes, but also eternal changes. Today, we're gonna look at my personal wishlist, so let's start with the standard nerfs. First nerf is CS. We have already seen CS at 9 mana before the small rework, but I think it needs to happen again. Why, you might be asking? I think it is fine that Demacia has powerful Wincon, but I don't think CS does it in a healthy way. Also, while Demacia feels that it is balanced currently around CS, and that is not healthy at all. There was actually a big discussion on Twitter about it, so I will link that in description. It's very good to read about, from people like Icon and Drisoth, and I do definitely agree with them. And I do find even the CS that much problematic that I even think that it should get rotated next year. That rotation then will allow things like Golden Ages or something similar, different way and different Wincon to come back. Also, of course, Demacia might be very weak after we nerf and then rotate CS, but then we can just buff the other things, and that's something that I think Demacia definitely deserves. So it's just not a dump CS region how it has been last month. Second card that I think should get hit is Nilah. I think Nilah, especially on level 2, is maybe doing too much while being so healthy, so I have two options of nerf. First one that I like a little bit more is keep the level 1 the same, but level 2 will lose 1 point of the health. Of course, issue of this change is that most of the champions having +1/+1 on level up, so I can see that being the issue of this, so then we can use the second option. Second option is just clear and make her harder to level up. Though I think this is just like delaying the issue, right? Because I think especially for 2 mana, having 4 health unit that does so much is so problematic that it's gonna, it's just gonna be delayed. But of course, the champion gonna be weaker, and that's gonna, of course, make it a little bit better to play against. Continuing on Nilah, but not only Nilah, but also some Teemo decks is Whirlwind nerf. I think Whirlwind should deal only 1 to the Nexus. I think this is something that will probably even happen because I think the ability to just burn your opponent, especially with addition of Houseman into Nilah, is just so easy, and I think this change is just so clear, and it will make to play against Janna much healthier and much more fun. Third nerf to Nilah, and it is Gale. I mentioned this change last time, so it's starting at 1, but it's going to up to 4 times. I think this is just making that you need to commit more before it deals the 4 or 5 damage. And that's something that's just gonna make the Nilah once again feeling a little bit worse. As well, once again, feeling maybe Houseman a little bit worse because Houseman will be having much harder to reach the 5 damage point. The last change for Nilah, but not only Nilah, but also like Seraphine said, is Sunken Temple. I think Sunken Temple is just kind of destroying the point of the game in things like hand reading and stuff. Drisoth made amazing article on it, so I'm gonna also link it in the description. But Sunken Temple is just a not healthy card in my way. As well, it's very widely hated by the community, so I think it should go. Change can be like 6 mana or not draw +1. I think it still maybe needs a playable, but not really. When we move on to things like Fizz Yuumi and Teemo Yuumi, I think there's some clear issue, and that's Yuumi. I think Yuumi is just pushing so much damage while being able to just, be on one elusive, next turn when it dies, go to another elusive. And just that's something kind of stupid. I think it still should provide the protection that she does. So I would just make her 1/2 at the start while still giving +1/+1. So, she doesn't push that much damage, but she still provides the protection that she used to. It's gonna make her much weaker, but I think still completely playable. When we move on, I think Glacial Saurian is still too easy to activate. I think especially the ability to play around it is not really a thing. And I think that's something that should be happening because, you just need one weapon master now and you just always draw. That's something that should change with that you need 2 subtypes to draw. So your opponent can, navigate around it. I don't know, kill your Omenhawk or something like that. And then thanks to that, you're not gonna be able to draw. And still, Soren is maybe too good. So I think it's amazing now for him. So he's not that powerful as he is now. And the last standard nerf, but it's not really only standard nerf, but it's also eternal nerf, is Jax going to 18 to level. I think he's just too easy to level up. And this is exactly gonna make him a little bit harder and a little bit more balanced. Now we're moving into the territory of buffs. And first standard buff that comes into my mind is Kai'Sa level 2 getting quick attack. It's not a full revert because level 1 still be without the keyword, of course, on evolve. But, this gonna make the level 2 a little bit better because I even played Kai'Sa after the nerf and she was feeling so bad because you leveled her you were so happy, and then you realize that you cannot attack with her because she doesn't have quick attack, and it's gonna make the champion a little bit better while still not reverting the full power as it used to be. The second buff that instantly comes to my mind is reverting Swain to need 12 damage to level up. Of course, we nerf Idol, so I think not reverting Swain at the same moment where we nerf Idol was kind of a mistake, but I think it's just straight up that we can do that. Swain is really unlovable in standard now, so this change will not do any harm, and it just make maybe possible some different Swain piles. Another buff that I would love to see is Sermon dealing 4 damage again. I think we saw this patch that aggro just was not non-existent and aggro needs some help, and Sermon dealing 4 damage again might make it possible. Of course, it might not be a thing yet, it might be only case in Eternal, but I think aggro needs a help, and this might be one of the ways how to do that. I'm gonna list some other standard buffs that I would love to see. Of course, without much more context, is Ledros back to 8 mana, Well, as well. Rhasa going back to 7 mana, it's just the old good times with the beta. Of course, on Ledros, it's kinda questionable because of both, but you can maybe change both in Eternal or something, or maybe change the interaction between them. Next up is Warmothers Scroll. I think Warmothers Scroll can go to 11 mana, or let's say it might be even 10 mana, but I don't want to go too much hard on it. I think it might be another, way, another new Wincon for standard, we can see that it's just not played, and maybe with things like Volibear, it can actually see the play now. And the last change that comes into my mind is Tybaulk going to 10 countdown. I think we can see that Tybaulk really struggles in standard because it doesn't have the really needed tool that it has in Eternal. But with this change, it might maybe come back, but it's very hard to say. That has been standard. Now we're going into Eternal, where of course we're gonna cook a little bit more. It should be the more powerful format, so of course that's something that I keep in mind with my buffs and things. But of course we need to start with nerfs, even though there are gonna be only 3 of them, but I think there are some that should happen. First, we have Cosmical. I think Cosmical should go to 9 mana. My biggest concern here is that it's gonna, of course, hurt the standard Cosmico that I don't think is problematic at all. But I think Riot should be kind of scared of being back-to-back Eternal season dominated by Cosmico. We saw it last time where it was dominated so much by Cosmico decks. And I think this just should be happening. Of course, it can maybe change things like Serpent maybe and just change the early game of Invoke. But I don't think that might be enough. And that's why I think that maybe the Cosmico should happen. Second card that I think should get nerfed is Timelines. We saw Timelines dominating the first Eternal season, but being kind of a little bit more silent last season, even though it was still very powerful decks. But of course, the issue of the Timelines last season, or last Eternal season, was that it was losing to Cosmical. So with nerf of Cosmical, I'm very scared that Timelines just may take over. So that's why I would love to see Timelines going to 3 mana, because then we're not gonna have again Timelines meta or something like that, and it's gonna be much, much healthier. Now with the nerfs, I have also 2 combos that I'm not sure if we should hit or we should keep the same, because of course we got exposed for them, and that's Valley of Imitation and Shellfolk and Sun Monument and Epiphany. I think both of these combos we saw before and they seem pretty scary, but of course we had the experts as said, and I'm not really sure even how to hit them while not making the cards unplayable. So that's something that I wouldn't be surprised if we get in the next patch notes, but also, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get them and then the decks will dominate the meta. But that's something I'm just not sure how to change them as well. So maybe share your opinions in the comments about that, because I'm kind of scared of that, to be honest. As well, I'm very curious what's gonna happen. Now we're gonna, of course, look at the something more fun, and that's Eternal buffs. I have 2 buffs and then a lot of reverts, so let's look at the buffs mostly. And that's Tribeam going to 3 mana, but starting at 0 damage. I think Tribeam was 5 mana for 2.5 years. I was thinking about making Tribeam 4 mana again, but I think that would be maybe too weak. And Tribeam counting itself for the damage, while being 3 mana also is kinda interesting, and I wouldn't mind it at all. Of course, as said, as for mana, I don't think Tibim would see any play, and this maybe might bring, some Noxus PNC midrange back, and that would be kinda interesting. Exchange that I have is Kindred swapping the stat line, so being 4 mana 3/4. I think this should make the self-killer hit a little bit better. As well, it might be different pairing for Nasus, because we saw Nasus Trash, but we really haven't seen the Nasus Kindred. And then I think this should be really interesting, and I would be kind of fun of it. Now we go into like the revert territory where we're gonna do a lot of reverts. We saw it by Riot last time a lot, so I think that's a kind of good way how to approach these Eternal patch because I think, seeing some old deck favorites is something that I think Eternal should be doing. And, also making the power a little bit bigger so the Eternal is more fun. Start with some Plunder reverts. We saw Plunder a little, but we haven't seen enough of it. And I'm down to maybe see Plunder coming back. If it's maybe too much, we can then nerf against something. But I think Gangplank going to 5-5 is completely fine. I think Gangplank, especially when you compare Gangplank to Nilah, it's kind of funny. Harpoon cost 3 lives. I think Harpoon is very bad. And they don't make it maybe also way how to answer things like Janna, maybe. That could be also cool. And then Grifter always giving Browning Shot. I think Allegiance cards are kind of interesting, and I'm down to do a Grifter back that it always gives the Browning Shot. Now I have some Frejlord buffs. It's Brom getting back the 1 attack, of course losing for that 1 health, making him 1-5. We've seen him very good at this point, but that was like 2 years ago, so I'm down to do it again. Then we have Davu and being 6 mana. I think, Davu and plus Atrocity should be a thing in 1 turn, and that's something that's gonna make it. It's still gonna be probably worse Nessus, but why not, right? And then Troop of Ardax also giving top 10 cards again. Troop of Ardax was good like 3.5 years ago, so I'm down to, maybe see some Ardax again. Next up, I'm gonna just say some changes that I would love to see, and I think the cards can get some maybe shining again. We haven't seen them for a while, so why not, revert them? That's Kata being 3-2 again, Grace Attention being 4-1, while BaJAtak being 4-4, Spectator being 3-2, Disciple dealing 2 damage, Monk being 4-3, and Pathways being 5 mana. As said, I think Eternal should be more about fun. It should be more about very powerful decks and maybe the power that we saw in the past. And something that I'm curious to ask is, what do you think about Questioner getting free reverted? Do you think that would be too much? Leave your opinion in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching. And hopefully, we're gonna get an amazing patch and see you in the next video.